Hello, hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into the Odd Thoughts Podcast. At the Odd Thoughts Podcast, we like to talk about the everyday odd thoughts, have conversations on relatable topics, and discuss whatever comes to mind. My name is Gunther, and I am your host. Welcome to episode 35. For episode 35, I wanted to start out by talking about my top five favorite Christmas movies. I have tons of favorite Christmas movies, and it was hard for me to pick five, but I did, and I would say these are my favorites, and I consider them some of the best Christmas movies of all time. Then I transitioned into talking a little bit about acknowledging accomplishments. I think it's important at times in our life to acknowledge those accomplishments, those achievements that we have, and it helps us, I think, feel a little bit better about the process of life and how we're pushing through in certain moments. Next, I wanted to delve into a little bit about dependability. Whether you are a dependable person or you're someone who pushes dependability on others, dependability is a certain reliance, right? A certain trustworthiness that some people may possess and some others may not. Then, lastly, I wanted to have a little fun talking about homesteading. I'm really interested in like the self-reliant, self-sustainability kind of lifestyle and living off the grid and that homesteader kind of vibe is maybe a little extreme at times, but I would love to be a little more self-reliant and a little more self-sufficient. So, if you want to listen to any of these topics, I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. Please enjoy. How's everybody doing though? I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope everybody's, start to the week is pretty amazing. I hope that the end of your week is pretty amazing. I hope everyone is happy. I hope that in this very moment you are fulfilled in life. Not through like money and material things, not through necessarily relationships or being wanted, but but in how you are as a person, how you want to feel. You are only in control of yourself, and it's important not to lose the navigation of your own way. Looking onto others as the standard is, or in not just as an example, can affect and lead you on a chase for assurance of oneself, right? You're kind of confused by what others do. So you're just chasing about who you are. You're just chasing for an undisclosed picture of what you want things to look like. Everyone is doing what they are doing in their lives the best they can in their own current moments. Nobody said it was going to be always perfect, and not everything is going to be accessible. Figure out what defines you or figure out what you are sick of being defined as. Make the you that you want to happen. There's going to be a long process. The process isn't the same for everyone, and it may hit you particularly hard, right? It may be a little more stressful on you. As long as you look at yourself in the mirror directly into your eyes and you can say that you're proud of who you are, then forget everything else. Forget all those other hardships and just make sure that you can feel good about yourself as a person. And the fulfillment you have in life comes from being a complete person, making sure that you set yourself up for success and don't look at others as a standard, right? I know y'all are doing okay. Happiness is a thing that's different for everybody, right? And fulfillment is different. But I know y'all are making your way. I'm making my way. I'm doing okay. Um Getting towards Christmas. I'm gonna do an episode on my wish list. Even though like I don't really care what I get for Christmas, but I've got a episode coming up where I'm gonna have like a Christmas wish list. But I can't help but to have like particularly on my mind right now. I really my number one. I'm just gonna say my number one because I probably won't talk about it in that episode just because it's kind of a pipe dream. I might, but I want a PlayStation 5, man. I can't. It's haunted my dreams. No. It's obviously one of those things where I don't plan on getting it, and I want to work for it and buy it myself as I've done for most of my other stuff. I just can't help but to think, right? I can't help but to think that Santa Claus or something is going to come give me a PS5. I'm ready for the next generation of gaming, and My PS4 is old. It's like 10 years old, and I break out the PS3 sometimes, and I'm just, the old school generations, they can only be so much. They only give me so much fulfillment to a certain point. So I want that next generation of gaming. And I mean, I even like I have a laptop that it's a pretty powerful laptop. It's nice and I can play games on it, but I'm trying to keep the laptop used for work. I do play a game. I play Project Zomboid with my little sister on Steam, so I do that, but I want a PS5. I love console gaming, and especially when I have some time. So I really, if as long as I get it before GTA 6 comes out, then we're all right. I bet, dude, that GTA 6 trailer got everybody hyped. It looks like it's gonna be a great game. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see the map size. I think is like what I'm most excited about as someone who's really like regularly playing these big open world kind of RPG games. I'm gonna be excited about that, and hopefully, and I've also heard like there's gonna be a lot more stuff to do in the game and more interactable environment stuff. So it's just an amazing game, and I mean I have a year, so I ain't really tripping. I have like more than a year and a half till J6 comes out. Oh yeah. But there's other games on the PS5 that I want to play. I want to play Cyberpunk 2077. I want to play that really bad. A bunch of games. Just see what's happening. But I'm not holding my breath on it for Christmas or anytime soon. So there are other things I wish for on Christmas. Like I said, I'll talk about it in a future episode. But I can't help but just want that PS5 so bad. And I know I'll get it eventually. I don't need it when it comes out. I don't need anything when it comes out. I can wait. I can be behind. It's okay. Once I've played all the games that everybody else has already played, it'll be fine. Then I'll be on the same page. It's just the new graphics look amazing. I'm sorry. I can't stop rambling on it. It's amazing what gaming has come to, right? And just the graphics in video games and just the computing process of consoles nowadays are it's like you're watching a movie sometimes, and with like Unreal Engine and what they do for like the visuals in games, it's crazy. It's crazy. If anybody wants to buy me a PS5, just send it to my house. I still live in the same house I've lived in since I was 13 years old. Dude. So just send my bum ass a PS5. Sorry. Excuse my language. Dude. But yeah, let's hop into episode 35. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Let's get into it. The holidays seem like a pretty unbelievable time of year, pretty happy time of year. Hopefully, everybody feels a little happiness as we approach Christmas, a little bit of warmth. During the holidays, we get to really feed into this time of year, in different aspects. It feels like people are particularly, into the season when it comes around Christmas time. We might decorate our homes to fit the season, you know, eat or drink our favorite like Christmas time snacks or drinks or whatever, or just, start enjoying like Christmas time activities. One of my favorite things to do during this time of year is, of course, watch Christmas movies. It helps set me into a certain mood, it helps me get into the holiday season, and it gets me excited for when Christmas actually happens. There have been a lot of great and, maybe not some so great Christmas movies that have come out over the years, and some that pull out heartstrings and some kind of show some craziness that might ensue during the season. And, there's plenty of others that kind of cultivate their own holiday experience. I know that I've watched plenty of Christmas movies. I have plenty of favorites that I consider like my all-time greats, when it comes to holiday movies. And so it got me kind of thinking, especially feeding in and watching as many movies as I have so far during the Christmas season. It got me thinking about what my like top 5 I could maybe say favorite Christmas movies, or maybe just like I say my favorite more so for my top 5 favorite, but a couple of these movies I consider like all-time classics, like on a greater scheme of things. So not only are they my favorites, but I consider them the best Christmas movies of all time too. But yeah, I collected 5. It was pretty hard, but I thought five was pretty manageable, and I tried writing my own like synopsis for each one, and hopefully that'll help out. But I thought it'd be fun to shout out some some of my favorite Christmas movies. So I'll start with number five, bottom of the list. It's still a great movie nonetheless. Is Unaccompanied Minors. It came out in 2006, and my synopsis I wrote for it is it's yeah I wrote preteen Spencer and little sister Catherine are planning to fly to their dad's for Christmas on Christmas Eve. But a massive blizzard cancels all the flights, and the siblings are sent to a room with a bunch of other like unaccompanied minors. And they're just gonna wait it out basically. And while they're in that room, they meet a certain cast of characters, a kid named Charlie, Donna, Grace, and Beef. How nice. Just a cast of kids. But it's eventually boredom ensues, and the cast of kids, excluding Catherine, the little sister, decide to escape the room and just roam the airport freely. But the head of the airport, or like head of like travel or relations or whatever, a guy named Mr. Porter, he hates Christmas, and he wants to keep all the kids locked in the room. And like I said, he hates Christmas. He doesn't want any fun. So the room is very barren. Nothing good in it. But, as these the kid, Spencer and all the other kids are roaming around the airport, Spencer realizes that not having a present for his little sister might ruin Christmas for her and might ruin her faith in Santa, basically, you know what I'm saying? So Spencer and his cast, his gang of kids decide that they want to like try to find a present for his little sister. And they like eventually sneak around, and they like try to escape airport security, cause a bunch of chaos. And eventually they evade the security enough to where they end up escaping into like a warehouse. And they have like there's a great montage of them just rummaging through a bunch of luggage and stuff like that. But they were looking for a toy basically, or kind of. And eventually, all of them are, as the fun is ensuing, it kind of comes crashing down as security finds them in the warehouse, and they decide they want to go to they want to go to the lodge that sits near the airport where all the other kids were transferred. And so they all get on like these sleds, and they like slide down into this lodge, and Spencer is able to give his little sister Catherine, a doll, which is nice. But of course, Spencer and Charlie, Donna, Grace, Beef are all in trouble. So, well, I guess actually Beef, he's on his own adventure. But everybody gets in trouble. They all get like locked into these like interrogation rooms, and they confess their behaviors. They confess that they did all these things, and they're just bored kids or whatever. But of course they're not going to stay. So they escape through the air ducts. The ducks lead them into like a Christmas decoration room. You know what I'm saying? And they kind of become like they kind of get this idea, and the kids share their like sweet moments, and they have all these wholesome moments, and they decide that they need to bring Christmas to the airport. So they like break out all these decorations and start decorating the airport underneath the nose of the security. And eventually Mr. Porter catches them and said, he's kind of mad, and he like wants to reprimand them, but Spencer, the main character, kind of has like a heart to heart with him and says, ask him why he doesn't like Christmas, why he hates Christmas. And Mr. Porter relinquishes the fact that he doesn't have family and yada yada yada. Then that kind of turns his heart, and kind of like a Grinch story where Mr. Porter then dresses as Santa and starts to hand out presents to all these people. And it's an amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Spencer and Catherine finally like reunite because she's kind of been doing her own thing with the rest of the kids, and Spencer's been doing all these shenanigans, and like everybody kind of has this like sweet moment. Spencer and Grace had they have like this thing, and she doesn't have like family that like loves her, so she like spends the Christmas with Spencer and his little sister Catherine, and eventually the dad shows up too. Like the whole time, their dad's been like driving in a Hummer to like try to go get them from the airport. But yeah, it's a great Unaccompanied Minors. It's a movie. 2006. I was about 11 years old when that movie came out, and I love that movie. And it was just kind of a cool thing to think about being trapped in a airport. It sucked to think about it being on Christmas Eve and, not having a chance to go to see your family or whatever, but I thought it was great. And it really shows kind of this like kid energy 100%. It really lays into that kid vibes. And I've flown as an unaccompanied minor with my little sister, and anytime there's an older brother little sister, relationship in a movie, I'm gonna watch it. It's kind of just reminds me of me and my little sister, But I just love how these random kids just kind of, come together and they all have this one thing in mind and they can become friends and the relationships you assume, especially how it ends, you assume that it kind of lasts, that all these people are still in contact and all these things. And, Mr. Porter, the Scrooge, the Grinch, turns his heart and, becomes hopeful in the holiday season all again. And I think that's just a beautiful thing and good wholesome movie. Like it's nothing crazy happens in it, and I think it's just charming. And it kind of is, like I said, thinking about being trapped in an airport in a blizzard, just like crazy. I don't think I would be as ballsy as those kids were. You know what I'm saying? Like where they were chaotic for no good reason, it seems. But no, I mean it's how kids are. But I suggest everybody go. I know that at least in my generation, people remember unaccompanied minors, and it's a good little Christmas movie. It doesn't really hone in on too many of like the cliches of Christmas time and certain Christmas time traditions, but it really lays into the wholesomeness and, finding out what Christmas means to people and, you know, even when you can maybe, things are taken away, you're not going to be able to spend it with your family or whatever. You still try to make the most of it. But moving on to the next one, number 4 on my list, I had a movie called Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. Came out in 1999. It's basically like an animated anthology movie, kind of involving three different stories with Mickey Mouse, and his friends. And yeah, 1999. I was like 3 years old when it came out, and but it stayed so relevant in my life. But yeah, there's three stories. The first story is called Donald Duck Stuck on Christmas. And the story is about Donald's three nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They wake up on Christmas and they enjoy, the beautiful thing about Christmas, and they get their presents, and they have all these beautiful presents, and they have the best day ever. And before they go to sleep that night on Christmas, they make a wish to a shooting star that they could just have that same day over and over again. And they wake up the next morning, kind of like a Groundhog Day situation, and their wish came true. And it's kind of good for the first couple times, but then unfortunately, it's not as great as they thought. The presents they enjoy aren't as great as they thought it was, and it's not as exciting. And they start to kind of realize that everybody else, they thought it was kind of for them. It's kind of what you're when you're a kid, a little selfish with things. You get your presents. Who cares about the other things? But they soon to realize that everything else, like Donald and Daisy, like how they're affected, and all the families affected on Christmas. So slowly they remember that actually Christmas isn't about presents and it's about family. And that's what Donald's been trying to hone into them. But, when you're a kid, you're not going to listen. And eventually they're like, oh, we need to show Donald that we show our uncle that we love him. And so they take their like sleds that they got as like their main present and they turn it into something for Donald. I forget what it is, but they give it to Donald, and Donald has a sweet moment with the boys, and it's kind of this thing of like learning the real true meaning of Christmas is family, and it's not like presents and materialistic things. And then they wake up the next day and the time loop ends. And that's a pretty great first story. It's basically like it's like Groundhog Day. It's literally they're repeating on that same day and learning. I just think that's cool because when you're a kid, presents are what matter. You don't really think you just your family's around, yada yada this or whatever. But you kind of think about the presents mostly, truly. And when you kind of step back and you really start to think like, well, it's kind of amazing that the family's around and that we're enjoying each other's time and stuff like that. That maybe really feels like the true meaning of Christmas, right? And Huey, Dewey, and Louie learn that the hard way. I don't think I'd want to go on a time loop for any day, even the best day of my life. But the next story is a very goofy Christmas. And it's the story is about Goofy and his son Max are getting ready for Christmas by sending their letters into Santa. And they eventually do, and they're very much so like believers in Santa wholeheartedly. But Pete, their neighbor, screw Pete, tries to convince Max that Santa isn't real. He like, says all these things, and then of course later that night when they're at a party with a bunch of kids, Goofy tries to dress up as Santa Claus and like entertain the kids, but Of course, something happens and he gets exposed as a fake, and that just shatters Max's belief and totally sends him into a spiral. And I mean, Goofy is literally one of the best dads in cinema history. I mean, you could say whatever, but he tries to do his best to convince Max that Santa is real and do all these nice things and try to really set that in. And one of his big plans is he's gonna wait for Santa, right? He's gonna sit outside, he's gonna wait for Santa and let Max know. And you know, it's just a father trying his best to make his son feel better, but eventually Goofy his faith gets a little tested as the night goes through and Santa's just not showing up, and he sees like a burglar on a house like over the yonder, and he uses it for Santa, but finds out it's a burglar. And so Goofy then becomes like Max, and he doesn't have his faith and he's all down, and Max just loves his dad, so Max tries to cheer him up and dress as Santa and tries to bring back that spirit. And it's tough to watch these two people, right? Like losing their faith in Christmas or whatever and Santa or whatever. Then, of course, all of a sudden, Santa shows up with a present for Max. And they're like in total shock. And, Santa shows them like it restores their faith. And Max gets a present. I forget what present he gets. I think it's like escape. I don't remember. I don't want to say anything stupid. But really, what hits at home is like, they're like in disbelief that Santa's there, and before Santa leaves, Max is like, "Hey, you forgot my dad's present. Like, where's my dad's present?" And Santa says that Goofy asks for the same thing every year, and that's for Max's happiness. And so you're like, "Hell, you're like, oh yeah," you're like, "Goofy's the best." But that's a good story. I think it's whether you believe in Santa Claus or not, or whatever you believe, I think that's amazing. I think I just one day it happens, right? I think with everything in life, like you lose a little faith in certain things, and you're not going to have some spectacular moment like something showing up and telling you like, hey, just keep it right, keep yourself right, keep on this way, don't let people tell you differently type thing. But it's just a good it's that restoring that Christmas faith. It's restoring the holiday cheer, that restoring of a good heart type story. And it really just drives in home that father son relationship between Goofy and Max, and this makes me cry every time. This whole movie makes me cry. But lastly, the last story is Mickey and Minnie's Gift of the Magi, or Magi. I think that's how it is. I'm stupid, so if I said that wrong, I'm sorry. I don't know everything. But the story it depicts them as like a loving couple struggling with like Christmas time, like with money and stuff like that. So Mickey puts in a couple extra shifts at the tree lot, of course owned by Pete's, and Minnie puts in some extra shifts at the department store that she works at. And they're both kind of hoping to save up money and get them something special for each other. Mickey wants to get Minnie like a chain so she can hold her watch on it, and Minnie wants to get Mickey a case for his harmonica that he's always playing. You know what I'm saying? And so they both are trying as hard as they can for the holiday season, but they both fall short of expectations. Mickey gives away like his last bit of money to a family in need, and he like doesn't have money, but he ends up selling his harmonica so he can get the gold chain from Minnie. And Minnie receives a freaking fruitcake as her holiday bonus, so he just doesn't like have anything, no money, and so she sells her watch, which the gold chain was for, so she could buy a case for Mickey's harmonica. And they get home and they both kind of like kind of upset, but they excited to see each other, and they pull out the present and they show each other what they bought each other, and they both start to get emotional because they see that like they bought each other something that for their prized possessions, but of course they had to sell their prized possessions to get each other a gift. And I think that's just a amazing story. And obviously it's Mickey and Minnie. It's the classic, so it's like one of the most classic couples in history. So, but it just shows you kind of what people, it shows that sacrifice that people make during the holiday season, right? Where they don't got a lot of money. They don't not people don't have everything for extravagant gifts, and can't buy you the whole world sometimes, even though you want to, especially when you love and care about someone. And so sometimes you have to make these sacrifices, not just in, working a little extra, but maybe you have to sell something of your own to give to buy something that you love for some, for something, buy something you want, or buy something for this person you love. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. Just jumbled mouth. Trying to I'm trying to get through this a little quicker because I realize I've spent a little time talking. But like I said, nonetheless, the Once Upon Mickey's Once Upon a Time, Once Upon a Christmas. Sorry, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. It's an amazing movie, and I know they made like a second one like in the mid 2000s, but I don't really remember that one. But I will always for sure watch any Mickey Mouse anything, you know. So I'll try my best to go through these last two. I mean, these movies are amazing, so it's gonna be hard. The last or the number, sorry, not the last one, but the middle point. The third movie is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Absolutely fantastic. Specifically the version with Jim Carrey, the 2001. That's the one I grew up with, you know, but I do love the animated version. But my synopsis, I tried my best to write synopsis, like do my best, you know. So the people of Whoville are preparing for their annual Christmas extravaganza, but up in a cave on Mount Crumpet sits a curmudgeon named the Grinch. He absolutely hates Christmas, and it's because of a particular moment from his childhood, like an embarrassing moment on Christmas during his childhood. And he ran to Mount Crumpet because of it and has then become a hermit since then. And a young girl named Cindy Lou happens to one day run into the Grinch at the post office. And she's not as scared of the Grinch as everybody else. She's more curious about the Grinch. And something happens at the post office where she gets into like some trouble, and the Grinch like learns to like the Grinch like frustrated saves her, and like, you know, she becomes curious about the Grinch and learns his backstory and learns about him being adopted and the embarrassing thing that happened that ruined Christmas for him. But Cindy Lou has a good heart in her, and she feels sorry for him, so she nominates him for the Holiday Cheermeister, which is just like the most prestigious honor, you know, for the best Who in Whoville. And the town is pretty pissed, but Cindy Lou doesn't care. So she heads up the mountain and meets up with the Grinch to extend the invitation. And of course, the Grinch grudgingly accepts, but then realizes he gets a chance to see like his old crush Martha and like see the rest of the Who's and show him up in a way, I guess, or whatever. But as the events happen, he kind of plays along, right? He kind of does everything that happens, and he's a little awkward and it's a little weird, but people are kind of feeding into it. But of course, as it comes, you know, it's got to be ruined for him. And Mayor Mayhew, who was the person who like embarrassed him originally back all the way when he was a kid, embarrasses him again by getting him like a razor for Christmas. Like that's his big present. And of course he gets angry and he like starts to burn the Christmas tree down and just causes chaos around the town and right in front of his like crush Martha too. And she kind of feels bad for him. But he flees back to the cave, you know, expecting that, you know, he showed them and maybe Christmas was actually stopped for this once. But of course, the Who's are they're going to persevere. You know, Christmas is very important to them, and they like, you know, set up a new tree and they're like singing around the tree and sets the Grinch over. So he decides that that night when everybody's sleeping and they think they're going to wake up to their presents, he's going to dress up as Santa Claus and come steal their presents. So he goes on this grand heist with a sleigh, you know, just robbing all these gifts. And as the next morning comes, everybody realizes that they don't have presents, and they're all pretty devastated. Of course, everybody like blames Cindy Lou, but she's just trying to tell people that, you know, presents aren't even that important. You know, you might have lost presents, but it's about family and friends. You know, you guys are confused. And of course, like, you know, but people aren't deterred. You know, they start to realize, okay, I guess it isn't about presents. And so the cheer, of course, begins again. And as the Grinch hears it on top of the mountain, as his sleigh's stuck on top of the mountain, and Cindy Lou tries to come and approach him as well, tries to go up and see him, he has a change of heart. Something hits him and he realizes he can't relinquish that like cheer off of people. So he feeds into it, right? And, you know, his heart grows in size and, you know, he flies back down the hill with the sleigh of those gifts and he gives them back. And they accept him as well, which is it's a pretty awesome thing. And I mean, I think it's a movie that really points out the real meaning of Christmas, right? That it's about spending time with people and having just a good spirit about things. It's not about materialistic things. It also maybe shows that not everybody has the same experiences in life, right? Where not everybody's going to have a positive, you know, energy towards something. And so, as everybody loves in Whoville loves the holidays and loves Christmas, the Grinch does it because of something bad, and he's never felt like he's belonged. And it maybe shows you that people can sometimes change their faith just by maybe maybe too much of an excessive force, with too much Christmas cheer coming. But it maybe shows you that one time when you're cold hearted towards something and you don't want to like let people in, that maybe eventually you just can't deny it. And hopefully then eventually you can become a positive person in that way of having a positive experience towards others. We only assume, I don't know if they ever came out with like another Grinch book, but we can only assume that maybe the Grinch then becomes part of the Who's and it fits into Whoville. And I love that movie. And I always laugh at Cindy Lou, the girl that plays Cindy Lou. Her name's Taylor Momsen, and she quit acting. She does she's in a band called The Pretty Reckless, and they're pretty good. If you listen to rock music, metal kind of, Pretty Reckless is a pretty good band, and she's the lead singer for that band, which I think is funny just to think that she just said, "Nah, I don't." Well, she was also in, I think, Gossip Girl, I think, as well. I think for a little bit. I'm speaking out of my ass a little bit on that one. Part of my language. But so I'll try to get through these next two a little decently quick. It's like I said, it's hard because they're such good movies. But number two on the list, my second favorite, arguably my second favorite Christmas movie is It's a Wonderful Life. Came out in 1947. It's a movie that my dad always told me to watch and like always, hyped up. And as I got older and kind of got my own taste in movies, I 100% watched it. And I mean, it's one of the best Christmas movies and one of the best stories in general. But my synopsis is, I wrote, a man by the name of George Bailey has always lived an extremely selfless life. He's always put people in front of himself. From the time he was a kid, he has always put others' needs and lives before his own. Anywhere from like saving his brother from drowning, taking over the family business when his father died, falling in love with an incredible woman and having a kid, or helping out the people of his hometown of Bedford Falls. But even when malicious people, like inside his own company, specifically a man named Henry Potter, want nothing more to do than just to take advantage of everything. Even in the face of evil, he manages to do good. Everything always seems to be a fortunate pretty much until one day, some money right before Christmas, some money goes missing. And it was misplaced by George's uncle Billy. And George tries his hardest to go and like find like the problem as usual and tries to retrace the steps, but his efforts are pretty unsuccessful. And it turns out that the money was actually taken by Mr. Potter. He like found it on the ground and like scooped it up. So George acquiesces to Potter that he needs some money. He needs this money for whatever, for the holiday season. And of course, Mr. Potter's not very, forgiving or a very nice person, and he denies him and ends up calling the police on George, basically, and putting the blame of the missing money on George. And so George heads into a downward spiral going into to Christmas. And he like goes into such a downward spiral. He's taking out on everybody else. He gets drunk at the bar, and he ends up contemplating suicide. And he goes to like a bridge that hangs over a river, and right before he can commit suicide, an angel by the name of Clarence all of a sudden is like, signaled towards this man's plight, towards this man's troubles. And he sees like a flashback of George's life and realizes that this man's done a lot of good and this man needs to be around. He doesn't realize it. And so Clarence gets a chance to help out George while earning his wings as an angel. So like Clarence like shows up before George can jump and like Clarence like jumps into the river and George saves him and like, saves him and in the process of saving him kind of relinquishes the fact that he wishes he never existed, that he wished he was never around. And, Clarence is like kind of talking to him, getting him to kind of, tell him. And so Clarence, says, okay, if you wish that, then I'll show you what life is like. Until like Clarence transports George into like an alternate timeline, basically. And it's a life that George does not recognize. It's everything is bad, everybody's worse for wear, everything that all these little things that George has kind of done throughout his life for people. He realizes it's not the same, and all the people he's loved are suffering, and the town he loved is not. It's called like Potterville or something like that. It's not called Bedford Falls anymore. So everything went to shit. And so George realizes that, and he has this like all new whole new appreciation for life, and he begs Clarence to like let him go back to his normal life. Please let me go back. And of course, Clarence does. And as soon as George gets back to his normal timeline, he like rushes home, and everybody's waiting for him, and everybody's there with open arms. And you just kind of realize like how important George Bailey was to, not, like I said, not only to his people he loved, like his family, his brother, his wife, his kid, but also just the people of Bedford Falls in general. And right before the movie ends, you hear like the ringing of the bells, right? And his daughter says, when the bells ring, an angel gets his wings, and like George says like "Attaboy, Clarence" or something like that. It's something like that. But that is, I think, one of the ultimate stories. I think it's the ultimate shift in Christmas cheer. It's the ultimate like, maybe it's just me. Like I kind of like a little bit of a, someone who's depressed, or has this kind of depression in their life, and things they don't see the good in their life sometimes, especially in a specific moment, but then it takes this extraordinary event to prove that you matter, and that all these things that have happened in life are because of you. And I think it shows that George Bailey isn't necessarily he's not a superhero, right? He's not a millionaire. He's not this uber rich person. He is an everyday person, and he just tries his hardest, and he does what he does, and he does the best he can. So, it's unfortunate when this one unfortunate thing happens, and it just leads to like a chain domino effect of more things. And has anybody for anybody out there, who has contemplated suicide, how far down you have reached, and how it doesn't really feel like anything can happen from there. And it took, of course, in this movie, it's an intervention from an actual angel, but I think we just don't always see the impact that we have on other people as it happens. But then when you maybe take a step back and you look at this bigger picture, you realize that there has been more that you have done than you realize. And it's just a great movie. It's been, I think, been remade, but I won't watch any remakes of that, even until now, until the future. But man, I spent a long time on this. Okay, so last movie, we'll do one more movie. But my number one favorite Christmas movie is A Christmas Story. Came out in 1983. Pretty hard to like not say that one. It's one that it literally kind of feels like it gets jammed down your throat a little bit during every season, but it's a movie I love nonetheless. And I think, to me, is encompasses that wholesomeness of family, the kind of awkwardness of family, and just the general plights that a kid has during his growing up years, his coming of age years. But I my synopsis is, A Christmas Story is a movie revolving around a young kid named Ralphie, who is living in Indiana with his mom, dad, and brother Randy during the 1940s. And particularly, we get to see a series of vignettes of Ralphie and his family and his friends during a particularly odd Christmas when he was 9 years old. We get to see the weirdness that ensues throughout the days leading into Christmas, including some random shenanigans he gets himself involved with his two friends, Schwartz and Flick, as well as trying their best to avoid their bully, Scut Farkas, and not upset their teacher, Miss Shields. Though eventually he does get his revenge on Scut after a particular incident. That's one of the best parts of the movie. The one thing that Ralphie cares about during Christmas mostly is he wants a Red Ryder BB gun. But of course, his parents and everybody around him, including the Santa at the department store, all seem to say the same sentiment and saying that, well, you'll shoot your eye out. Why do you want that? But, Ralphie can care less. He wants his Red Ryder BB gun. Ralphie's family is quite the cast of characters in themselves. It causes a pretty, like, odd dynamic throughout the household, right? A very hard-headed, hard-working father, super soft, calm, loving mother, and just goofy, weird little brother. It's just a classic family. Not only does Ralphie have to endure a weird family, but also just the occasional embarrassment of just life and inside school and inside hanging out with his friends. Like his father winning a pretty promiscuous leg lamp, right? Hanging it up in the front window of the house, or him having to wear a pink bunny costume that his aunt, I think, got him for Christmas. But all is worth it when Ralphie receives his Red Ryder BB gun. His father gets him the Red Ryder, and of course that makes it all worth it. But, he heads outside and shoots the BB gun, and of course he hits himself in the eye. And it's not the worst of Christmas. Of course, Christmas has to end in shambles for his less than normal family. And even when his father and his mom are trying their best to keep it together, the neighbor's dogs, the Bumpus's dogs, are not so keen on the holidays, and they end up ruining like Christmas dinner. And so I think their last name are the Parkers, I'm pretty sure. So the Parker family ends up having Christmas dinner at a local Chinese restaurant. And it's just a perfect end for a weird day, right? And then the movie ends with like later that night, Ralphie sleeping next to his BB gun, drifting off into, memory and thinking about it being the best day of his life as he narrates it as like an adult throughout the whole movie. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, A Christmas Story is a classic, like kid's tale. It literally, I think it's every kid has gone through a certain Christmas or certain Christmases like that. You want the certain toy or the certain gift that you maybe aren't old enough for, and you've got your friends that you guys are doing all these crazy wintertime things, and everybody had a bully and strict teacher. And so I think it was like what was great about A Christmas Story is that it really zoned in into like the family, the small town, or kind of small town, but the small suburban family life, right? And it just a particularly odd Christmas that this kid Ralphie has alongside his family. But yeah, those are just five of my favorite Christmas movies. I would say my top five for sure, but there are tons of Christmas movies that are amazing. Rudolph is an amazing movie. Elf is an amazing movie. Home Alone, tons of amazing Christmas movies. But those are just five like of the I think not only my favorites but the best. And I think during the holiday season, during Christmas, I absolutely love watching these movies because it not only the good stories and they make me feel a little warm and a little happy and make me appreciate Christmas, but it just sets me in a general mood. And everybody's got some favorite Christmas movies. I would like to know some of y'all's favorite Christmas movies if you ever want to comment down below on some of y'all's favorite Christmas movies. But yeah, everybody has their own list. Those are just my top 5 favorite Christmas movies. I think it's important to sometimes appreciate the things you have achieved in life. No matter how big or small, acknowledging accomplishments can help to realize some of the good you have done in life, some of the things that have gone right. It can help reassure you that even when things aren't perfect or going right or whatever, that there have been times when you've been able to pull through. Things take time, things take effort, so it could bring a lot of harshness onto you. So when you are unable to, or when you are able to persevere, through whatever situations, I think taking a moment to appreciate the payoff is important. Or maybe as time kind of goes down the road, really acknowledge those accomplishments. We may not always realize in the moment, right? Especially when it comes from out of something that you maybe not always feel like things are going right. Sometimes, like, you're in certain moments in your life where nothing good happens or whatever, and you don't feel like you're achieving something. But when you do, you got to realize that you are successful in whatever it may have been. You successfully accomplished something. Remembering all that has been accomplished successfully, appreciating all that has been achieved is a pretty good thing. I think it really solidifies, I think, a certain thought in our head of, oh, well, we can accomplish things, and even when certain things aren't perfect, and when we have to put some effort in, we can do it. And achievement feels good. No matter, like I said, no matter big or small, achievement feels very good to successfully complete a task or to successfully complete a certain goal you have in life. That's a pretty great feeling. I think a lot of people love feeling good about themselves, and completing certain set goals like that. That's a great feeling. That's something that can feed into that feeling good about yourself. So, I mean, acknowledging accomplishments. That's the whole thing of it's so important to know that you do things right at times. Tell yourself that you are capable of accomplishing things. And I mean, so many things. I mean, it's hard even when when I accomplish things. Sometimes I feel so minuscule, even the little things, right? Even when it just comes to like waking up a little bit or every day, or just doing a couple errands that you need to get done. Those are little things that you should feel successful about accomplishing. I think accomplishments sometimes has like a really big view where you think of these, winning something, or like you successfully do something 100 times or whatever. That's an accomplishment or whatever. But just feeling good about successfully doing something, accomplishing a certain task, you got to be able to realize and appreciate what you have done. And you got to, there's so many different factors that go into accomplishing things, right? So yeah, sometimes it takes so much work and so much effort, and obviously there's a time commitment to a lot of things. And you have to make sure that as things come along, that you're totally appreciating the pulling through of these. That you're gonna have to put in the effort, you're gonna have to put in the work, you're gonna have to put in the time through all these harshnesses, all these different factors that you're not always gonna see. But it's to then come out on the other side. And I mean, we're not, I mean, you want to be successful in life, you want to find success, but it's not about being super uber successful in every aspect. It's just more about being successful and achieving things when you're pushing through these harshnesses in certain tasks and goals. That's when I think the most, when appreciation is best, is when you've worked hard for something, you've had to put yourself through whatever it may be. Because it's hard to appreciate accomplishments in difficult times. When things are happening in the current moment, you don't feel like you're getting anything done. Or maybe just in the general ether of your life, and just kind of in a certain stretch of time, things just don't maybe go right, and things aren't perfect, and not everything is going to work out as you maybe view. So you kind of have some big goals set, and you have some bigger things that you want to accomplish, but you realize that you're kind of neglecting some smaller things. And so when you start to accomplish certain little things, and they lead into the bigger things, at the moment it could be kind of hard to realize in that specific moment, right? Or maybe like you don't choose to acknowledge when things are going right? Just because you assume everything's bad, or you assume that you're not going to achieve something or accomplish something. So why should I just, like, when something does happen, why should I acknowledge it? Because I could just turn around and fail at something and not achieve something. Yeah, it's that's a tough mindset, I think, to put yourself in. I know that I quite often, even with the things that are little and that do inevitably help me, sometimes when I compare it to a bigger thing, it just feels so, mundane. It feels so innate. And sometimes it's nice when other people let you know, right? When other people show you that, sort of appreciation for the things you achieve, maybe that looks a lot different too, right? You can't visualize it yourself, and you can't feel good about yourself necessarily, but you do have, then there might be some sort of craving for someone to let you know how much they appreciate what you've achieved, and let you know that you have accomplished something successfully. And you don't want to people to tell you that you should, appreciate. No, you must appreciate it. Why can't you just see how good you've done, right? It's just like, because you just don't know sometimes. Like, especially when certain things, it's just part of life. You're kind of just pushing through your day to day existence. So certain payoffs are just part of existence. But it's a win every day, right? As long as you're kind of doing little things, and you're going to take a lot of losses, right? You're going to take certain things that won't work out, but there will be times you do achieve certain accomplishments. And I think sometimes it's nice to sometimes, not only it helps you realize certain the things you've done, but when you see other people's accomplishments, and if you're someone that, like, sees other people doing great things, and you're very happy for them, and you appreciate the things they do, then you know that you can appreciate yourself, right? They just have a different push, and they're a different type of human than you are. So you got to do your thing, do things your way. And how you accomplish something, and how you achieve something, it's just in your own way. You got to appreciate your process. It's, not everyone sees success the same. Not everybody even will know what success looks like in the first moment, right? In the varying levels of success, right? I don't always mean it in the sense of like this uber successfulness in a job, or making all this money, or do 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 do, or da 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 da. Just the little things. Success means just accomplishing in a positive way, just in a achieving something in a good way. That's what success is. And it's important to always try hard. I think that's big sentiment in anything is when things are happening in your life, and whether it's kind of these smaller goals and smaller tasks or for the betterment of yourself or your situation, you always got to remember to try hard. Everything takes effort, and it's going to feel like you're putting in so much without any sort of reward at times, right? But you got to make sure you have your own due process. Give yourself that due diligence to get through something. Taking your time is going to look different than other people's timetables, right? But take your time. Push through difficult moments. Always try hard because inevitably you will achieve something. And it's going to be hard to some, especially when it's super difficult. It's going to be hard to think that like, oh, it's not going to work out, right? Because things may not work out, right? Not everything is perfect. That's a super big thing. Is even maybe sometimes in the successful sense that it's not like successful in the keen, most pristine, idealistic way, but successful in the accomplishment way where you just got through it and you got done what you needed to do, and you made it through all those different like whims and all those different aspects to try to achieve something. Like I said, things may not work out, right? It may not be ideal, it may not be perfect, but you should appreciate all achievements as they come. You appreciate, we learn to appreciate the effort that we put into things, right? You got to learn that first, I suppose, but or learn how to put in the work and the effort. But you got to appreciate those achievements. Show love when accomplishments come around, right? It's so big on trying to say it's big or small. It doesn't matter. If you feel good about something, you completed a certain goal or a certain thing you had set for yourself, and it's as long as it made you a better person and made you feel a little bit better about your situation, then I mean that's ultimate. That's the ultimate. That's the thing. That's the ultimate goal is just to feel good about yourself, and you don't need people to show you appreciation. Sometimes you do, though, right? But you don't need that. As long as you're continually pushing through, I think accomplishments will show. And we do hope that sometimes maybe someone will let us know that we're doing okay. And when we can't see it in our own moments, and we in the certain moments of difficulty, we just don't choose to maybe acknowledge it, or our brain just refuses it. That hopefully that just reinforces things. That we find ways to reinforce the proudness we feel in accomplishing something. And oh man, as we know, everything it's not always going to be easy. Things are going to be pretty difficult. So when we get to achieve certain things, when you get to acknowledge those achievements eventually, I think that just makes you feel better as a person. And it's very important to try to do your best to be as good of a person as possible in the way of just taking care of the things you need to take care of. When other people are doing their thing, they're doing their thing the way they can, and they're accomplishing the things that they've set themselves up for. So just look at what you have and just accomplish what you can. Look at the achievements you want, and just work hard and put the effort into that. And just make sure you take time to acknowledge those accomplishments. Some people are seen as particularly reliable people, or, can be trusted to handle whatever comes along. And there are others that are more incapable in certain aspects, and they need to rely on others. Dependability is defined as like a factor of being reliable, right? When everything is not going as someone planned, or someone is just surrounded by others who aren't able to do things themselves, there becomes a definite source for dependability. There's someone that can handle other people's problems and pull through, or someone that can always whatever handle situations come their way, they can always handle. You may be you may be the person who can always be relied on and often pull through for others' sake and for your own sake. Maybe you can't handle a certain situation or any situation really, so you seek a shift in dependability. You seek that person to depend on. To be dependable, you often are extending yourself to help out others, or extending yourself to help out what you need and what others, or like I said, what others may need. To depend on others, you are relinquishing your situation and letting others handle it, and letting your situation into the ether and be dealt with in however what way. If you can be dependable or you can be a reliable person, right? That you could be seen as like trustworthy. I think when someone is seen as like a dependable person, they're seen as kind of capable. They've seen that they can show how to they've shown they can handle whatever aspects kind of come their way, whether it's kind of like in a personal need in a personal way or when other people come with plights and they can extend themselves to help out. There's like I said, there's a trustworthiness, a capability with being a dependable person. You have to be willing, I think, too, right? To like when people depend on you, when you are that dependable person, you have to be willing to hear others out. You have to be willing to take on those other problems. And whether you've done it before or not, it's just like you're always going to be able to extend yourself to a certain point, no matter what, really not taking into consideration all the aspects of that problem. You just know that you can depend on yourself, or you know that you are a dependable person that can be capable at times. And I think there's a care and a respect that you have for others when you try to be a dependable person. There's no doubt that I think like dependability can be sometimes maybe taken like forced on you, right? People could take advantage of you for sure. When you're seen as like stable, you could be seen as like a scapegoat for things, right? People don't know how to handle their own situations. So when you're solidified in your situation, then it's like, okay, well, I'll just let them take care of it or whatever. And especially maybe if you are some sort of, pushover in a way. I think, it's okay to be empathetic towards people's problems, right? And when people can't handle situations, like having empathy isn't a bad thing. And because you have that care and respect for others, you don't mind extending yourself. Or I always say, like, don't force yourself to help others in the way of like, if you don't have a situation where you can give yourself, not in giving things, but give yourself and your time and your effort or whatever, don't feel like you have to force it. Do what you can when you can. Have time for your own situations, most importantly, really. Take care of yourself first. I think that's kind of this thing with like, make sure you depend on yourself first. When you're a dependable person, usually it's seen as like you can handle your own situations, but don't ever like then deny and ignore your situations and your predicaments or whatever. And undoubtedly, because undoubtedly people are going to see you as that dependable person and say like, hey, I can rely on them to get this done for me, or I can trust them with this information, and I know they're going to do it because they always handle this and da 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 da. Especially when you've had like a willingness to take on other people's like plights and situations. I think it's a great thing to be a dependable person and be a reliable person, especially especially I think it's just like it makes us a complete human. You got to be able to depend on what you can do in certain situations, and if you can be a reliable person for other people, then I think that's a sign of good. Or just a sign of like that you're just one beacon of hope for some people or whatever it may be, right? But let's say on the other side of the coin, right? As there are these like dependable people, right? These reliable people, there are people that depend on others, right? There's people who are undependable. They rely on others. Putting your situations, your predicaments onto others. Some people just can't do things on their own. And I don't want to say in a general state of like, someone is totally incapable when they can't handle this one thing, but sometimes there are moments that just you just can't handle and you're incapable in certain moments. You're confused and it's whatever it may be, right? Or you just can't trust yourself to do something. So you just like put it onto something else or put it onto someone else. Even like ignoring it is like just putting a dependability on it just working out. But some people are like that. People have always been there for you, maybe, right? In that sense of like people kind of just like wipe up the mess before you can even see it, the mess you've made. You've always had things kind of taken care of you, right? So you just may not know about your capability and you may not know about depending on yourself. And you don't know what a dependable person looks like because everybody around you just takes care of your situation. And maybe even in a certain point where you're viewed as incapable or useless, huh? Where maybe just like nobody even tries to stress you out with anything or really put any problems on you because you're seen as incapable in general. But then when you're kind of relinquishing all these things away from yourself or your goals, your task, any sort of thing that you have to depend, to be capable on, if you're just kind of denying that and things are being denied from you, sometimes people keep problems away from you. But if you're just being useless like that in a sense, then it's just always going to be hard whenever things come on. You're always going to be wanting to push away that dependability. You're always going to want to just have that reliance on others or other situations to figure it out. Maybe you don't always realize you're doing so though. Maybe certain things kind of don't they build up, but they haven't really come to kind of bite back at you, right? And then that's like I think an inevitable thing where eventually you're going to be left to your own devices. There's only so many things you can kind of depend on others for, and so many times you can kind of push your situations onto others and just push it away. But eventually you're going to have to figure things out. You're going to have to handle it yourself, and you're going to be left in a probably a complete confusion, absolute incapability. Things pile up pretty easily as we know in our lives. So if you're not taking time as a person in your own way to rely on yourself and getting things done and being a dependable person for yourself, then you're just going to have these things pile up and it's going to ruin you and you're just not going to know how to handle anything. So, and like I said, sometimes there's certain situations like very independent people who can handle their own things. Like sometimes they need help, right? And it's probably hard for them to relinquish that kind of help, right? Where they have to say that they're confused and they're incapable of this one thing. So, but there's people who definitely 100% take advantage of that, where they know they can always just say like, ask this person for help or ask this person for help. Independence is kind of earned in a way, right? You kind of you can get thrown into independence and having to rely on yourself, but independence is kind of an earned thing. True independence, when you can truly take control of your situation, and it takes time. If you've been someone who kind of has depended on others and you kind of relinquish certain independence, you're gonna have to. It's gonna take some time to earn it back and work on it and take control of all your life aspects. You start with the easy, then confidence grows and things become more serious, right? If you're someone who's coming from a person who escapes dependability, escapes independence, and escapes independence, puts dependability on others. If you're that type of person, you're gonna have to probably earn. Like I said, when you're earning that independence back, you're gonna have to start out small. You're gonna have to start taking those little things that you ignored because it was just like one of those problem, a situation, and you're gonna have to start with those small things because serious is just gonna be too much. And also knowing that when you do take that reliability on yourself, not everything will work out. I mean, it's just everything. I try to always say this with a lot of topics is that not everything is perfect, and but it's about enacting certain things in yourself. It's about trying. That's kind of the whole point of human existence is that you're supposed to try. There's nothing that's supposed to come easy, nothing that comes as a gift, nothing that comes as like a super easy situation. Everything takes work. So, you're going to have to be that person that's going to have to be reliable, right? And whether you're a reliable person and people depend on you or you're someone who's unreliable and you're putting dependability on others, dependability is a certain aspect of human existence. We're going to have a certain reliance and a certain trust to accomplish certain things. And you're going to have it on yourself, most importantly. You're going to have rely on yourself and depend on yourself. But obviously, there will be times when maybe you can't handle situations, right? And you put dependability on others. And as long as you're not taking advantage of that situation and you're not always pushing aside your situations and your predicaments, then I think earning independence is available for everybody. I would love to one day maybe live off the grid on my own land type thing. Maybe not completely off the grid, but live on my own land where I can just farm my own food, kind of live with nature, disconnect from people. I think realistically there might be a certain struggle without the luxuries of the city and the suburbs has to offer, right? But I want to be able to adapt. I think I can truly adapt. if I learn and I plan out how I can achieve such a off the grid kind of lifestyle, then it would be very intriguing to be kind of like a homesteader. Homesteading promotes a certain like self-sufficient lifestyle, which is way more so what I'm looking for, I think. But I don't want the extremities necessarily of living like off the grid. I just want to be self-sufficient. I will have to put in a lot of work, undoubtedly, but it's a work I've never done before. But I'm willing to put in that work to achieve sustainability and self-reliance, and maybe maybe raise a family that way. I think a self-sufficient lifestyle is pretty awesome. And to think about like homesteading to like which is more living off the grid, I think it's very intriguing. Self-sustainability, growing and living within your means, kind of really the big thing with homesteading is just doing what you do to survive, growing what you need to survive, taking care of your land in the way you can to just survive. And it's kind of part of this whole kind of back to the land movement that has kind of existed for a long time, right? It feels like in like 1800, like through the 1800s, maybe early 1900s, there was like a promotion of that lifestyle, kind of. I think people really, it's important, I think, to be able to do that stuff and in the kind of means of the way we live today that we get to, we get to go to buy our food and we get, if something goes wrong at our house, we can hire someone to take care of it. But I think it's not a bad thing to be self-sufficient and to at least have that like sustainable lifestyle mindset. And obviously, it would take learning how to like homestead. That would be someone that I would have to try to do as much research as possible. Do as much research into homesteading, into living off the grid. Excuse me, sorry, to living off the grid as possible. But I kind of was like, there are certain factors, right? Kind of components, right? Undoubtedly, I think the big thing is like farming. That's kind of what I think about. And maybe I just want to farm and I don't necessarily want to do the whole homesteading thing, but farming, substance farming, where I'm only growing what I need. I think that's an interesting thing, and being able to like figure out which plants and which vegetables grow in certain seasons, and learning how to like seed save and soil preparation through like composting and stuff like that, and different gardening things like hydroponic gardening, and maybe like creating like a greenhouse too, because I feel like that can I can do like year round things in a greenhouse. Some things just take a while, right? Have to deal with some bad things like pests and some small vermin, but the farming thing is, I think, one of the big main components and main aspects of homesteading that seems so amazing to me. Is being able to grow my own food and kind of becoming more with nature. I think it's kind of fun to think about growing certain vegetables at a certain time, and that's kind of what you eat. Like you have that, so that's what you eat. Undoubtedly, also then leading into like food preparation, right? I grow this stuff, and then eventually I'm gonna have to learn how to preserve some of it for sure. And so that's kind of cool to think about, like jarring or canning things, and that's pretty cool. It's frozen storage. If I live in a cold enough place, right? Certain things can be frozen for a long time, and I probably would inevitably also get certain unperishable items where like canned things like from the store, just in case I'm a little light on the veggies for the season. No oven cooking, you're just cooking on like an open fire and stuff like that. Really just rugging it, kind of just like, fancy camping dog too. No, sorry, no. But also just think about things like I would learn how to do like homemaking things, like handcrafting items. Learning to be I always wanted to get into like carpentry stuff, and I know it's weird to say, but I want to be handy. I want to be a handy person, and I can do things with tools, but I don't know everything, and I wish I just knew more of that stuff. So I'd start getting into handcrafting my stuff, right? Making sure that I'm upkeeping my property and, learning how to sew my own stuff and have to get good with like weather preparation. I think that's like a big thing is thinking about all the crazy weather and all the unforeseen natural forces, right? Finding an energy source. I don't know if I'm going to be plugged into the grid, so I have to do some solar panels. But just thinking about how then to be useful and resourceful off the land and preserving like my little home, my little shack that I have or whatever. And maybe I have a few animals too. It's kind of flying through these components, but yeah, I have a couple of chickens, you know what I'm saying? Have a goats or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. have some eggs. I'd have fresh eggs all the time. But I don't know. I don't know if I could take care of another life. I don't know. I love I mean I have pets and I love my pets and I want to become a father one day, so I will find a way to take care of living things. My chickens are gonna be okay. But it's just an ultimate survival thing, I think. It's kind of what I think about is it's not all the luxuries of the cool things of homesteading when you get to learn how to farm and you get to be handy and all these things that there's so much survival to it. It's you're gonna have to learn how to forage or what happens when animals, bigger animals like bears or something like that come at you. You have to learn how to trap animals even if you're gonna need some food, right? Starting fires and like learning how to do first aid stuff. Water purification, that was something I was thinking about was like, you can collect rainwater, but I don't think I'd be drinking rainwater around like where lakes and rivers are because that water might not be clean. It's not going to be clean. So I just like I would have to do so much research. I think my hopes for homesteading is that everything would be perfect, but I would do so much like pre-planning, learning how, building up that willingness. I think you'd have to release like all expectations in that homesteading where you just have to go out there and just try your best. And at first, it's not going to be perfect because you've never done it or whatever, but learning how to do things, learning how to farm and learning how to forage and keeping your house good in or your little shack or cabin or whatever. I would do it. I would do it old, real like primitive style where I just like cut down my own trees and build my own cabin, dude. That'd be intense. That'd be insane. But I kind of have like that. I kind of have that like dream in the back of my head. But really, like I said, it's more like I just want that self-reliance. And I know that it'll be a trial by fire thing, right? Learn as I go along. I'm going to make tons of mistakes and I'm going to have to do work to make up for those mistakes. It's not just a under the rug kind of sweeping thing. So, but it's that self-reliance that I really want. I want to put myself through the fire to learn how to do these things. And because what if it happens one day? What if this, I don't want to be around in society, not like that, but like not in a crazy hermit way, but why not? Why not just live off grid? And if I could do it myself and I can handle my own life, then why not? Give myself like a new appreciation for life too, kind of connecting to nature and forgetting society's luxuries. I think that's kind of crazy, especially when you're living in the city or the suburbs. You may not realize all the things you're taking advantage of in the sense of like facilities. Then you kind of get away from that and you realize it's like, oh man, I'm just out in the forest by myself doing my own thing. I like I said, I think it's kind of a cool thing to think about, even if whether it's by myself or my own community, my family or something like that, having kids and doing that kind of thing. It would teach me a lot though. It's really I just want to be self-sufficient. I just want to rely on nobody but myself and I want to live with sustainability. So even when it doesn't come to the full-on aspect of homesteading where I'm like actually going off the grid and doing that stuff, if I take certain aspects where it's just like sustenance farming or I'm growing some if I can grow certain vegetables at my house, then why not do it? Or, if I can do certain if handcrafting things and getting good with your hands and handiness in general is it's a good thing to do in general. So I can just always learn that. But self-sustainability is something that I feel like we should push towards more as a society in general. There's so many luxuries that we have in the world today, and they're very nice, and they're there for us to take advantage of, right? But I think there's a a factor of just not thinking that self-sufficiency is important anymore. There's a lack of self-sufficiency, and I'm one to talk. Like I'm not a very self-sufficient person at times, but if I had to throw myself into the fire and live off the grid and do like a whole homesteading experience, then I would. I'd make sure that I would do everything I could to plan it and trial by fire type thing, right? But homesteading is a pretty amazing thing, and to think about having like a self-sustainable lifestyle is pretty awesome. Alrighty, friends, that's really all I have to say about that. Episode 35 done. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you want to listen to this episode or any of my other previous episodes or future episodes, I always upload it on YouTube or Spotify under the Odd Thoughts podcast. If you enjoy any of the episodes or find anything I say relatable in any way, then I would appreciate some support. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. You can also follow me on a few different social medias. I'm on Instagram, I have Facebook, and I'm also on Twitter. I'll make sure to link those all in like the description below, as well as in my YouTube channel description. But I appreciate the chance to get on the microphone and talk to y'all. Felt like I was a little sporadic with this episode. I felt like I was kind of rushing through certain topics, but I just know that all the important thing is just getting thoughts out there, and I'm always trying to do my best to get on the microphone with some sort of confidence and let others know that it doesn't matter how it sounds to you when you're talking and the way your thinking process is. It doesn't matter as long as you're getting things out there and you're feeling better about, what you're thinking and what's on your mind. But yeah, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure to show up for yourselves every single day and be excellent to each other.